Very good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining NSSF Financial Literacy Program. This is the time when we go back to school. It's always our joy to see you to see you joining in into such an event. This is the time. This is the next 2 hours at the time when we compose ourselves into a class and then talk about money. As you know, we all went through school, and I keep saying this: we all went through school. We had our very many years of kindergarten, very many years of primary, very many years of secondary, A-level, went into university. Some of you have gone after university, you've done some PhDs, but in all this that you are doing, no one ever stops you, no one ever stops and tells you about money. Yet, while we are doing this, we are pursuing for a better life, we are pursuing for more money, but no one ever tells us, now that we have the money, what do we do with it? So, as NSSF, we run our School of Money, and it happens every Friday, once in a month, just to take off 2 hours, compose ourselves into students, and go back to school, the School of Money. My name is Mboa Apollo, and I am the headmaster of this school. I always remind my panelists, and I will be giving them explicit instructions, that when you are referring to the headmaster, you add a sir at the beginning and the sir at the end, because this is a very big school. Mine is a very short one, and it is always, I have the easiest job as the headmaster of the school is to bring in the teachers, to bring in the facilitators, to share their experience about money. Now remember, we do not bring in money experts, because if they are money experts, probably will not afford them. But we bring in people with experience with money. Each of us has an experience with money, and they will share from their perspective. The money story is a unique story. What works for me may not work for you, but you are invited to learn from what works for me, so that you articulate what works for you. So while they will be sharing, they are sharing their experience from their perspective. Decipher it and pick out what works for you. Not everything is for you. If Shadrach is kind enough, my back office team, Livestream Extreme, they will share a brief PowerPoint that I want to share with you, and then set off the discussion. Monetizing your passion. That is what we are going to be doing today. We're going to be discussing about how do we monetize your passion. And passion and money. If he's kind enough to go to the next slide. Before we do that, I just wanted to give you a picture, and this is just a reminder. I keep reminding you about who NSSF is, and this puts into perspective why we do this. NSSF is a membership organization and membership authority by mandate to save your money, and we are at 2.2 million members. That put in perspective, out of 45 million, we are not performing, but we are making strides. If he's kind enough to go to the next slide, you will see that as NSSF, our membership, and this is the slide why exactly we are doing what we are doing. Every year, every month, we pay out 115 billion on a monthly. This is money that leaves NSSF. I know you have heard from the corridors, NSSF doesn't pay. NSSF doesn't do, but 115 billion finds its way out of NSSF into the hands of its members. Of those, our surveys and the surveys from FinScope and government show that the people who have retired, only 5% of them realize financial independence. 5%. Now, ladies and gentlemen, financial independence is greater than money. While at NSSF you get the money, it is incumbent on you to articulate your financial independence, and that's why we're going to have these discussions. I just want to break down a little bit, and I've been discussing with my panelists. I have shared this information with them. Of our 2 million members, 1.2 million people have a balance below 10 million. That's 83% of us. 12% of us have a balance between 10 to 50 million. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I say this not to cast to throw stones at anyone, but just to put you in perspective, that the place where you have your biggest balance, you need to become unique about it. You need to become an individual about it. If it is 19 trillion, of the 19 trillion, what is actually yours? Are you among the 83%? Are you among the 12%? Or are you among the 2% that are between 50 and 100 million? Or are you among the 2% that are above 100 million? Ladies and gentlemen, we do this because 50% of our people who are below 10 million have a balance less than 1 million at NSSF. And yet, the majority of our members we meet have failed to do one or two things or three things, that because NSSF has taken away their money. Your problems, most people feel that their problems started with saving with NSSF. And today in the School of Money, we want to tell you that your problems did not start with you saving at NSSF. You fail to buy sugar, and you say it's because NSSF has my money. And the picture is saying differently. And we are saying, let's have a discussion so that we can speak to the money that you have in your pocket. If Shadrach is kind enough to go to the next slide. So today we are talking about monetizing passion. And passion. If I don't know if it's my that on my side, but passion. Just a minute as we sort those screens to get to where you want to get. While the screens come to you, I'll just continue and they will find you. Our purpose as NSSF is to make lives better, and we want to make lives better by making savings a way of life. And we passionately do this. I'll tell you. It's not that it is a coincidence that we're having passion as this. We passionately dedicate ourselves to making savings a way of life. One of the things we feel like, it's not the only thing, but we feel like you can break into your financial independence is through savings. And as NSSF, let's do that for you. But allow me to just continue. If Shadrach, you are kind enough to continue the bit. So passion, and please continue to the next slide. Passion as the I am not the speaker today, but the gentleman will probably articulate this. I picked a quote from somewhere, and they say, "Get a passion and follow it. Vision does not ignite growth. Passion does." If you go to the next slide, please, Shadrach. Passion fuels vision. Passion fuels and vision is the focus of passion. Leaders who are passionate about their call create vision. I go ahead and I add in my own and I say, become passionate in what you do. We've had a very interesting discussion, and I've been told about what passion is and how it relates to work, but I'll leave that to the people who are going to be saying these things. Passion passion can be monetized. Passion is consistency. Passion is action. Passion is articulacy. Passion is authenticity. We're talking about what passion is, and can it be monetized? We are going to be asking ourselves those questions. If Shadrach is kind enough to go to the next slide, so that I do not take up the space for my speakers to speak. So it is consistency. It is, you do not need to announce to the world that I am passionate. They will see it. Ladies and gentlemen. It comes from a place of authenticity, and it is consistent. That is what I believe passion is. But we are going to have more of this. If you are kind enough to go to the next slide. As I wind up this, can we monetize passion? And one of the questions I have for this panel, these are my personal questions. Does passion need to be monetized? Does passion need to be monetized? Do we know our passions? If I don't have a passion, do I die? I mean, I need these people to tell me some of these things. Can I update my passion to increase my money? And that's my objective, that I want to update my passion so that I increase my money. And today we have experts to speak to that. Money and passion, what is more important? Things like that. So if I can invite the kindly, if you can go to the next slide, and then I wind up this. I would love to wind up this with my Christmas wishes, because I may not get a chance to wish you Merry Christmas. While we are on this subject, I would want to just remind you that a few things from the Financial Literacy Unit, and these are not mine, but that unit felt that they needed to share these things. One, Santa is not real. And this is not from me, it's from the ladies in Financial Literacy Department. Why do they say that I need to share with you this? Because usually during this period, we are sharing lists, wish lists. We are spending like we are the person picking the bill is Santa. This bill is coming out of your pocket. Santa is not real. So when you are spending, when you are coming up with that wish list, remember you are the Santa. You are going to foot it. It is not your birthday. Connect with a birthday boy, and that birthday boy is in church. So don't excessively celebrate yourself because it's not your birthday. If you didn't save money the entire year, and this I'm just passing on behalf of my team. It's not, these are, I disclaimer. If you did not save money, please don't look for the money to save you this period. You didn't save it, so it can't save you. You are either managing your savings during this period or managing scarcity. It depends on where you are. So if you're managing savings, please remember it took you time to accumulate these savings. Take time when you're spending them. Don't just spend them in one day. Reconcile your objective. When you are coming up with these savings, were these savings for that objective? Were they to be sacrificed on the 26th, on the 25th, on the 28th? These savings, what is the objective you had these savings? You won't die if you don't spend. That one is one Jackie asked me to share this. She's called Jackie Nagasha, in case you meet her. Said, you won't die if you don't spend. On the other hand, if you are managing scarcity, you didn't save anything. Understand and appreciate that's the position you are in. For this festive season, volunteer for work. When they ask for skeleton staff who is staying at work, please volunteer and say, I will stay. It will be a good explanation for the people who are the ones who are expecting the village. You will tell them, no, for me, I've been told to work. Volunteer for work. That's you managing scarcity because it's what you have. It's what you have, and you need to manage that. Drink water. You won't die. Drink water. You didn't save for it. Please drink water. You're managing scarcity. Drink water and tell them it is healthy. I'm drinking water. It is healthy. Water is life. Bring it to the family. Sometimes we are spending so much because we are trying to get into all the other places. But let's bring it now. Let's come back to the family. Let's create time. Go and talk to your children. Talk to your wife. Tell them we are not going out this week. We just want to connect with each other. Yeah, it's money. Write poems for them. Instead of buying them that Christmas toy, just write them, show them your love. Share rides. Going to the village, you're saying, you know what, we need to bond. You need to bond with your cousins. So you don't have to drive your car. You go into with your brother's car and the children connect as cousins. You are managing scarcity. Ladies and gentlemen, you won't die. Christmas is coming again next year. But I want to remind you one thing. Also, school opens on the 6th of February. But we'll speak about that more, that and much more later, just to keep reminding you. But for today, this morning, I have the privilege of hosting 3 good gentlemen. I know, yes, you saw the flyers. There was a lady, and because she's a lady and strength of a lady, she gave us a good substitute while she goes to articulate on other businesses. Semer from Tiber Schools. He is the gentleman that has substituted Mariam to talk about passion and money. We have Paul from Mercantile Bank. One of the reasons I had to choose Paul, much as I've learned much more about him in the last 30 minutes than I thought I knew, is because he heads a bank which feeds, which aids people, which tools people to do their passion. Everyone is a farmer, and when I went to that bank, they articulated my farming passion with tools, and they said you can actually do this. So Paul, today tell us, the corporates, they are farming, they have a farm here. How can they monetize that if they need to monetize? And then we have Tony Otoa, the class monitor for this conversation. Tony is not, I was telling people that when they say Tony Otoa, you expect a giant, but he's a down-to-earth man. Literal also down to earth. So Tony has been doing so many things, but his name comes to the limelight because of the things he's passionate about. And he has given me a new perspective about work and job. Today he's going to head this conversation. Gentlemen, just to remind you, just only one pointer as we get into this conversation. This is my class, and I am the headmaster. But when you're referring to me, you say headmaster, sir. But you actually start with sir, headmaster, sir. Tony, please let the people know. Do we need to have passion? We were born to work. Why are we doing passion things? Why are we touching ourselves? We are Africans. Why are we doing those things of passion? We need to be doing things of work. But I'll leave it to you. You are the guru. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. I don't know if I'll be able to say that over and over. You know, usually when a teacher leaves the classroom, that's when you take over, and you become the chief in command. So welcome, guys. Welcome to this very interesting webinar. We're going to be talking about passion and passion projects, conversations around what you like to do and how you can turn that into a cash cow. But most interestingly as well, I think basing off what Apollo has just spoken about, when we were having our interaction just before we came onto the set, we were talking about passion. What is passion and the difference between, what we consider work and passion. And I made it clear to him that my idea of passion is a little different. What I see as passion is, or the difference, or where the difference comes in, is between work and job. Your job is your 8 to 5. You clock in, and at the end of the month, you're paid for that. That is your job. Your work is that one thing that you are passionate about. You wake up every morning, you're excited to do it. You don't care really much about the money because the money is usually a result of that. But you are good at it, you enjoy it, and you can breathe till the last day of your life enjoying what you're doing. That is work. So, where is your work and where is your passion? And that's what I wanted to put into context. But I have a very interesting panel with me. And today, I really want this to be a very interesting conversation around what passion is about, how to make money out of it, but also what makes these people tick and what makes them stand out. I'll begin with a very interesting young man, Samuel Luyombo. He is a financial analyst, director at Taiba International Schools Limited. His responsibilities include further digitization of operations, growth strategy, and corporate governance. Taking from Marion Luyombo's passion, his mother's passion, he has been able to be involved with the school from the time when he was aged 18. He has served as a tutor, financial analyst, project manager at different times over the course of the past 10 years, and he holds a bachelor's degree in economics from York University in Toronto, a master's of finance from Smith School of Business in Kingston, Ontario, and his professional experiences include retail stock investing in Toronto, teaching in China and Uganda, fresh food export, managing a retail grocery store in Canada, and of course, he's passionate about business, education, and finance. Welcome, Samir.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Fantastic. And then, of course, next to Samir is the very ably able gentleman. We have Mr. Paul Senyomo. I just wanted to probably say I know him differently. I'm not used to seeing him in suits. I'm used to seeing him in gym attire because he's part of my 5 a.m. crew at the gym. But Paul Senyomo is a chartered certified accountant and a graduate of Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting from Makerere University. He's a fellow with the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants of the United Kingdom. He's a member of the Institute of Public Accounts of Uganda and he is a Prince 2 certified project manager and a holder of a Master's of Science in Strategy from Gordon Institute of Business Science at the University of Pretoria. He's currently the chief executive of Mercantile Credit Bank. He's not here to poach me. We are colleagues sitting on the same stage. He's done this role and has held it since 2015. Prior to this role, he was appointed and worked at Bamburi Cement Group in Kenya and pursued several roles in that, which included the regional project manager role, finance and group business controller for Bamburi Cement, responsible for regional business strategy, regional group performance, management, and business analysis. He is, interestingly, a parent, a family person. He loves reading. He is a mentor and a sports lover, and he's particularly interested in sports. And I've seen him do that with his kids. And he'll tell us why he has pushed that passion into his family, into his children who are really young, but go out there to be the best that they can be. But he's also an agriculture expert who will be telling us how to really churn agriculture and make it work for us. Because, like Apollo was saying, we have pursued agriculture. We cooperatives have pursued agriculture. You put in 5 million, 10 million, and the next thing they're doing, they're sending you pictures of that goat which is dead. And you don't know what to do. And after a year, you wind up your passion and you say, let me go back and slave away. Today, we're going to have these conversations and talk about them in more detail. So welcome to the panel, Paul, and welcome, Samir. So we're just going to make this interactive. And by the way, feel free. I know the class monitor. I'm not the kind of class monitor who writes down names of talkative people. Feel free to interject and let's make this conversational. So, discovering your passion. I'll begin with you, Samir. Just help me understand, or help the guys who are listening in and watching you right now to understand your various interests. What made you get into that interest area, and how is it working for you today? How are you making it work for you today?
Okay. I think for me, growing up in a business family, right from as early as I could remember, we had conversations about work, about business, about loans from I think as early as 10, and so very early on, these seeds were planted. So I think what's one of the things with passion where I don't know, it's not necessarily inherited. Some of these things are developed over time. And for me, it was very much the environment I came up in where, both my parents were into business. So a lot of the conversations were around that. So that kind of pushed me. And so being that they were both into business, I had this interest in learning how different businesses work, how they make money. I was curious about, why is this the price of a tomato? And things like that. So I pursued an education in economics and finance just to kind of try to learn from that, try to tap into those interests that I had. And I think it's working out quite. I like to believe it's working out well. I've tried to vary my experiences because I wanted to kind of test the waters in different places. Sometimes you don't know your passion unless you've experienced certain things. So you don't know what you don't know. So I went to teach, I've worked with banks, and a lot of that had to do with kind of, okay, do I like what do I like, what do I not like, what's going to really get me going? And I found that, education services, that sector, as well as financial services, were two areas that I was really interested in, and I've just continued to push along that path.
Fantastic. You mentioned something that I really find interesting. The idea of hopping from this to that, trying to find where you clearly fit in and where you find yourself at your best. Paul, when we are discovering passions, and you're passionate about so many things, and you're going to speak about this, how do you tell something is your passion and you have arrived at that sweet spot? How do you tell?
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, NSSF, for this opportunity. I must say, I think I'll start from a point which does not really answer your question, but it answers everything you'll ask. I've come to believe and firmly share with whoever I care to meet that the 3-step success formula, which my mentor, Robin Sharma, keeps talking about, I think is a reality that should be taught to everybody at every family. What is this formula? It basically says that with better awareness, you make better choices, and that gives you better results. It's as simple as that. That's the formula. It's the only formula without math. Yeah. So why am I saying that? I think when I was growing up, and many people in my generation, Generation X, it was more of circumstantial survival,
right?
Rather than thinking of, apart from the sports, which really brings your adrenaline out. I remember when we were in Chisubi, on Saturdays we start sports at 6, and Brother Martin, the late, used to come at 1 to chase us to go for lunch. We dodge him, we play football until the evening. But, you forget that you've not even eaten, you've not had anything to eat. But I'm saying this because with time, what I would call my passions evolved. Today, whoever knows me, and maybe when you care to spend time with me, you realize that parenting is probably my top number 1 passion. But parenting, you can't be a parent when you're young, but some are. And I got into that because of circumstances, I can say. Circumstances in a space that I loved my children, but I realized I didn't know so much. And when I got to realize what they were going through, I realized I needed to do more. But in doing that, I think I became like an iron bar put near fire. By osmosis, it just generates the heat. So I think I got tied in there. And today, I think everything about me rotates around that. Now, you talked about agriculture. Agriculture, interestingly, like I said, most of the things we did when we were young were circumstantial. In Masaka, you definitely can't avoid agriculture. So we are forced to go into the farm. But in this perspective of passion...
And now in Masaka, you can't also avoid grasshoppers.
Grasshoppers. Yeah, but in this perspective of better awareness, I think you actually appreciate that agriculture, if you're doing parenting, it is the best complementary school for you to do proper parenting. And I will explain later as we go along. So for me, my passions, of course, sport I love because I think it brings in the best of you. You forget about risk as a young child. You actually are so daring. And those are the ingredients that make you actually appreciate life, that our lives actually are theaters of greatness. The issue is, do we bring out the greatness? And sports helps us to do that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now let me just go back to you, Paul. You know, Paul, you talk about looking at your parents doing this, and rather a guy from Masaka, you've seen the farming journey happen. Most of these guys are subsistence farmers. There's a corporate guy who's probably watching this, and he's thinking, I'm going back to the village, but I'm going to be judged. I haven't done anything worthwhile when it comes to, buying a goat or a cow or whatever. And yet I feel like that should be something I'm passionate about. And we were also talking about how, when we're coming to retirement and NSSF has given us our money, most people are quick to run into agriculture because they think that is the best way of investing their money. What advice would you give to someone if he thinks that's the path he wants to take, but he's also uncertain if that's either his passion or he wants to make it his passion eventually as he does it?
Thank you. I think I will try to make an attempt to define what passion is in my perspective. To me, passion is, I think, the joy you feel when you are dispensing energy or effort to do something that gives you pleasure, fulfills a purpose, and most importantly, actively engages you. So that eliminates people being passionate about sleep. So when I say it actively engages you, I think that is my view of what. So many of us, I think, we think passion is pleasure, but that's just reducing it to a facet of happiness, which actually eliminates the holistic benefit. So my view is that passion becomes an elongated happiness pursuit, because you're doing something that engages you, something that you feel satisfies a purpose, and something that gives you pleasure. Now, I will refer back to where I started, and I said the three-step success formula is about better awareness, better choices, and better results. Now, when you talk about people who have not done agriculture, I think when we talk about agriculture, people think you have to have 40 acres, 50, a square mile to do productive agriculture. But when you go back to that formula, you learn actually that you shouldn't start anything unless you are aware. Yes. Otherwise, the results are kind of predetermined. Now, I have dealt, and I must confess that I do a bit of sizable reading before I undertake something, and not to the sake of deferring or procrastinating, but to just try to get it right. Because I learned when I was young that doing the right thing does not go out of fashion. So if I'm to do something, I'd rather do it right. Yes. Yeah. Now, agriculture, you will find very few farmers talking about agriculture, and they define for you the yield per acre. Yeah? So you find somebody who needs just 2 acres to get a yield of what others are getting in 10 acres.
Absolutely.
Yeah? And people have not paid attention to that. Absolutely. That if you're, for example, planting grain like maize, even the amount of soil you put on the seed causes growth stress, which automatically makes it a false start for the yield that you will get.
Absolutely.
So agriculture is a very interesting dimension, and we can't deplete it today. But what I can say is that going back to the aspect of awareness, I would encourage that whenever you want to pursue, a a career or an activity in any activity. I do sports, you know that, Tony, and I'll share a bit about that. It's important that you try to seek out the knowledge. What are the key success factors? What are the things that you need to know? Others you learn as you go, but learning everything as you go along may be a bit of a suicidal mission, which you don't want to undertake. Yeah, but of course, even in the bigger spectrum of things, we are talking about monetizing our passions. You look back, Headmaster Sir has been giving us statistics of the population here. In the year 2000, I think we're about 18 million people. We're now about 45. So if you're talking about monetizing, I think agriculture is not the best place to keep away from your pursuits.
Okay.
Yeah, because people will feed every time the house is built,
Yeah.
arable land is reduced. So
Absolutely.
but the mouth to feed increases.
It's increasing.
Yeah, so I think for me, I did it fast, not on a commercial basis. First, I did it because I was venturing into sports for my children. So we wanted one of the success factors in sports is diet,
Nutrition.
and nutrition, and so we ate 80 to 90% of what we eat at home comes from the farm. I know the headmaster, was it you or the headmaster telling us that people drive to their farms and then on their way back they pass by the market and buy what to feed at home. So my motto is different.
Yeah.
I go to the farm to teach the lessons to my children. For example, the law of the farm. And I'll just dive a bit into something here. That I told you agriculture and parenting are very complementary. Like the law of the farm, I had to take all my children to the farm. And we did planting in a day. Everyone went with 10 seedlings of mango trees. And we also planted tomatoes. Now, tomatoes take 3 to 4 months to grow. And we harvested, made some good returns, and everybody was happy. But then they kept saying, where are the mangoes? They're not coming out.
Yeah.
I said, you need to wait about 3 to 4 years or 5 years. But the beauty about it is that after those 5 years, the only thing, unless you cut down the mango, every season you are assured of at least 300 mangoes, that you can sell out.
Yeah.
Now, in there, when you're teaching children sustainable, aspects and patience, you show them that, we planted tomatoes. You don't even remember the area we planted tomatoes because that is long gone. Yet you have to wait for 3 years to see the first mango come through.
I like
But
that.
when you have that mango,
Yeah.
then nobody, you don't have to do any work apart from watering it if need be, but
Yeah.
most likely it has deep roots.
Yeah.
So if there's one thing that has done the work for my children in sports, that law of the farm has been so fundamental.
Ah, fantastic. That's a very, very interesting one. When you talk about passion and agriculture, I visited a very interesting friend called Tony Kidega in Gulu. I think you've seen his farm. Tony is, a vet guy. He loves animals. He's passionate about animals. And he works within a small area. It's quarter an acre. But he produces so much milk that when you think about someone who has a square mile with all those cows, they can't outcompete him when it comes to the amount of milk produced. So you can clearly see that your passion, like you said, the passion is also going into the detail of what is the gestation period we're looking at, what is the kind of semen we're bringing into this farm, for these cows, and that's what he does. So I can clearly now see that, the way you've positioned it is very good. But also I like the fact that you've talked about patience and also the process. The mango tree and the tomato, they're all different, and that is really, really interesting. But there's something that is crazy, and this is now for you, Samir. In today's world, young people like you are looking at technology to put out their passions. I was with a very interesting young guy called DJ Tads. He's a disabled young guy. And this guy has all social media forums to put out his passion of music. He's a DJ. He also plays the trombone. It's a trumpet kind of instrument. He is so passionate about so many things, but the music and whatever he's passionate about goes through technology, social media. How do you use this to advance your passion projects?
I think it's important with social media and technology today to still maintain the age-old lessons and some of the things Paul touched on. You probably, if you go online, it's very it is a useful means to get out there, push your brand, push your product, push your services. But I think you have to have there has to be a balance. You have to, you can't say, as soon as I'm online, that's it. All I have to do is go online, and I'm good to go. I think we're speaking about financial literacy today. So the good thing with the digital space is there's no shortage of information. So when you if you're producing music, you can find out right away how many people are viewing what you're seeing, how far out it's reaching. You have geographic locations. You have information on demographics like age, gender. And so now it's like, so you have this information. And now, for example, in this case, if you're making music, you'll have to sit back and kind of look at what you're doing. And maybe this is the type of song you want to do, but the other song you made is more appealing. And so you have to kind of strike that balance where you say, okay, I'm passionate, I'm doing something I'm passionate about. I ideally would like to make a song that is, of this genre because I like that. But there's the financial aspect of things. And this other type of song is going to allow me to grow my business, is going to allow me to continue working in my passion, because I'm able to see that one is just more, it's more of a money getter. So I think that's, I know social media is exciting and people love it. So you have to still maintain the lessons Paul touched on, and just, it's important to learn, to be committed to learning how your business is performing, even when it's online. So I think that's the tip I have for most people. I do some retail selling online, but the principles that push me and help me grow are very much still the same ones that any accountant or financial analyst will look at. Because I enjoy the products I sell. I like to see that people are interacting with them. But the reason I'm doing better this year than last year is because I looked at the information, I looked at the age-old business wisdom, and I kind of married the two to be able to move forward. So yes,
that's quite interesting. I think when you talk about old age wisdom, I think you're getting that from your parents, right?
Yes, definitely.
You definitely have to borrow from your parents, because I think you've been around them. This is quite interesting. Someone was telling me why or how he finds it exciting when you get into an Indian supermarket. You find the young kid sitting next to the old guy who's collecting money, and the kid is watching. So that kind of old wisdom with the tech. But I also found it very interesting when we are talking about the new social media platforms that have come online. TikTok, for instance. Lots of young people are making money off TikTok. Lots of youthful people are making off money in the gig economy of Twitter, for instance. You just you're employed by an entity like, say, NSSF, and all your tweet is Sir Apollo has said, Sir Apollo, Sir, that kind of stuff, and you get paid your 500,000. And lots of young people, I have noticed, have become so passionate about this that they actually make more money than a university graduate who's getting into a job as an entrant, So I think technology for me has played a very interesting role in seeing these things happen. But Paul, when you talk about technology on your end, what do you see it like? Because sometimes we're thinking we have all these passions, then in comes AI, which is making our passions almost inevitably gone. Let's say my passion is speech writing. AI today can write a better speech than myself. Where does that put my monetization plan, or how do I survive in that world?
Okay, it's good you bring in the monetary aspect. Let me start by just demystifying a few things here. In my perspective, the historians will tell you that in the years 1500, the world generally believed that it is the sun that moves around the earth or the spheres. Then came up one Copernicus who actually he published the revolutionaries of sphere movement, and he said no, it is the earth that moves around the sun. Now we've been taught a certain mindset that for us to be happy we need to be successful, yeah. But those who have done a bit of positive psychology studies and neuroscience, I think have now confirmed that it is happiness that is a precursor to success. But the reason I'm bringing that concept is because you're asking, how do you monetize what you do? So when you do something, and I like the way you started, because you're saying what is work and what is a job. My perspective, like I've said it, you're supposed to, if you want to be successful, be happy.
Be happy first.
Yes,
I like
be
that.
happy. If you are happy, then the amount of emotion and the type of emotions that will emit your brain are creativity, delivery, resilience, and all this type of thing. And by so doing, if for nothing else, you're a happy person, okay? But this is where the catch is. There is nobody who lights a candle. Even if you hide it below the table, there's some light. Yeah. So if you're doing something while happy, you will actually end up being recognized. And there is a simple matrix that I give at office for my staff to assess. It's basic on two things, two accesses. One is loyalty, the other is satisfaction. Yeah. So you have low and high. When somebody has low loyalty but has high level of satisfaction, we classify that as a hostage. Yeah, so these are people who would have no initiative. They would just do the basic stuff. Unless you tell them to remove the cup off the table, they may not do that. Then you have those who are low on loyalty, and they are low also on satisfaction. Now we classify those as terrorists, not really in the ADF mode, but these are terrorists at work, because even delivering basic deliverables, they will struggle. Okay? Then you have people who are highly satisfied with their work, but they don't have loyalty to the company or whatever they are doing. Those are mercenaries. They're not bad people. They really have high energy, results is what defines them. But they will switch gears. They slept thinking about NSSF, they wake up thinking about somebody else. Okay? That's the kind of thing. But then there is the high loyalty and high satisfaction. Those we call apostles. Now, I heard you talk about a gentleman called Jesus. He had only 12, but I think they spread Christianity across the world. Yeah. Why am I bringing in this model? That even if there are performance reviews anywhere, everywhere, even whether you're on a digital space, whether you are, and that is what drives the next customer, the next person. So the person who has, and I just compare here, my brothers from Chanamkak and you, if they're all on Twitter, you know who is being followed, and if who would sit in the head prefect's chair today, because social media. So there are those. You are here. You may not be paid by NSSF, and I'm not saying they're not going to pay you, but
they will pay me when I'm retiring.
I'm saying because of your your participation in that space. Yeah, you have better visibility, and they think about you as being the best headmaster for today. So yes, the digital space is here. I think we can only avoid it if we decide not to subscribe to to the world of the best in class. And the issue is to align ourselves in such a way that whatever we're doing the best, with happiness, with joy, so that we have that creativity and tweaking things, to be seen as different, even if you're doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I like that because, it's really about standing out, The best person I always believe is that person who stands out. Someone said the marketplace will only reward you for the value you bring to it. You bring less value, it pays you for that. And someone say that is a very capitalistic way of thinking about this thing. But I also like the fact that you talked about happiness. But for the young people out there, we're not talking about vibes and mashallah. We're talking about working and being genuinely happy and working towards that. Because you see, like I mentioned before or earlier, Gen Zs are an interesting group of people. And, NSSF mainly caters for people who are all through that stage, but mostly worried or take care of the guys who are about to retire or retirees. Gen Zs are very critical about where they want to work. In fact, they carry along their passions as part of their daily lives more than what they've probably studied or anything of the sort. And when you talk about happiness, I actually see that in them, because a Gen Z will leave a job because there are no vibes. I can't do that. Or in my times, we couldn't do that. In fact, if I was a young guy out of university and I went home and told my father I have quit because there are no vibes, I think my father would give me a few slaps and probably check me in a correctional facility. But those days are long gone. But now let's just talk to the idea of personal branding, because you see, passion. You have the passion. You're good at what you do. People are starting to ask who can do that. Now you need to go out and say, this is me, Tony Otoa. I'm passionate about this. this is what I can do because I need to monetize it. How do you work around the personal branding issue, or how have you worked around it for yourselves? Sammy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think with the personal branding, at least for me, initially it begins with the people immediately around you. So in terms of friends and family, and this goes for like I think as well any of your passions that you're trying to turn into a business, because early on you are the business. Right. So it's very important early on to kind of receive feedback, because there's a brand that you want to communicate, and and you feel that this is what people want to see, or this is what people associate me with, and this is what's going to help me grow my business. The advantage when you're still small and you're just beginning your business is that the people who are buying from you are all within your community and sphere. So while you might think that this is what you're projecting, you may be surprised when you actually go and speak to people. So I think you have that advantage early on to be like, you can go and speak to the customer because the customer is your friend, the customer is your family member. So you go and speak to them about the product you're offering, the service you're offering, or how they view your brand, what kind of emotions that it triggers it with them, or like you as a person, what you kind of motivate, what you draw out of the person. So I think that in terms of brand building, that's always that for me was the starting point. What am I projecting? And if you have lots of large companies spend a lot of money to try and figure out what their customers want and how their customers view them. When you're passionate about something and you're starting a business and you're small enough, you have that advantage that you don't need to spend billions. You can actually just go and speak to someone about what brand you're projecting, and then you can speak to them about what you're projecting versus where you want to go and how to move that forward. So I think, at least from a personal branding issue, that if you're a small, starting out, you're passionate about something, collect that feedback. The customer is right there. They know you intimately, so they know what you're projecting. So I think that's really the key thing, in my view.
Paul, personal branding.
Yes, thank you. I think Mr. Luombo has actually touched on the core aspects. Of course, you start, charity begins at home. You start by the inner circle. But then secondly, you don't have really much room to make a first impression on the second meeting of a person. So you try to make your first impression count. Okay, everywhere you go.
Yeah.
I'm a bit blessed that, I work in a financial institution and everybody, whatever you do, it translates into finances. So I have a bit of interaction. But even if I meet one person, a person once in 5 years, one thing is that they can never forget that, okay? And they will talk to their friend about, the value they got. So I'm very deliberate. Life is about being deliberate. And if you're talking about branding, you got to be very deliberate. But added to that, on a personal basis, I commit in my annual goals that I give talks like this, not less than 12 a year. That averages on average, one a month. But like this year, I think this is my 18th.
Wow.
So, but it's that kind of thing, and wherever you go, you pray that you'll actually be speaking to the hearts rather than the minds of people, so that they have thirst to listen to more of you, wherever you will be. So that's it. But of course, there are the other channels in terms of the social media. Yes, that also depending on your paradigm, there are options. You can go a phased way if you don't want to go so direct. You can go through LinkedIn as your quick focus first, appeal to a certain type of people, and then you dive into the X and all that. Yeah. So thank you.
Well, you touch on very interesting things, and I like how you started off by talking about this whole first impressions. You see, we live in a world where, in our time, Paul, me and you, we're old guys. We're about to actually come to Apollo here for our midterm. But in our time, social media wasn't very visible. And for me to get to know you was either through the newspaper or on radio. And it was still, not very definite. Today, we have all these social media platforms that you've mentioned, X, which is former Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. And I've always said, how you portray yourself on there is how people will think of you. Even if you came to me later and said, "Oh, no, that's how I am online," the first impressions I have of you are that of that person. So I always say to young people, nowadays, the young people like violence. They say, "Hey, violence," and the guy has this meme of a guy picking up a chair and, sitting down for the violence. Personal branding for me is a very, very critical thing, especially if you're trying to, put out your passion. Just imagine you're a musician. You want to be loved by so many people. You want to put out your craft, but you always seem to be doing wrong things. People will, of course, alienate themselves from you. So I'm really glad that you talked about that. But also the other thing that you mentioned, Paul, which I thought you would probably need to dive into, is that passion for one thing. And when I listen to you speak, I don't see you talking about many things. And I always say, again, back to the Bible, Jesus was known for one thing. Martin Luther King was known for one thing. Mandela was known for one thing. He was a lawyer and all these things. But when you remember him, you know him for one thing. Why is it important to focus when you're talking about passion?
Thank you. When we are growing up, I'll use an analogy. We used to have magnifying glasses. I don't know whether they still exist.
Yeah.
Now, you would get that magnifying glass and put it, the stubborn children who wear. I think we are more creative than stubborn. Sorry for that. Yeah, so you could get that magnifying glass, put it under the sun rays,
right,
and then it would converge the rays, and you want it to I see your mark.
I remember.
But when you put it on a paper, it actually generates fire.
Yes, it does.
Now, you can imagine all that it was doing was to get this bandwidth of rays and concentrate them to a particular place. When they're here, you can't put a paper and it catches a fire. But because they have been concentrated to one place, it actually generates a fire. So you're asking me, why is it important to focus? Focus is the new multitasking.
Wow.
Okay, so you focus because you remember we started with happiness is the precursor to success.
Yes.
So that's the way it works, and I don't think I have a better way of explaining it than the use of a magnifying glass analogy.
Wow. Sir, Headmaster, sir. I think this man might need more than I don't know. He has become a philosopher on the set in an instant, and I remember those experiences actually as a child. We burnt a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
I remember we burnt a lot of things. And those were the good old days. But hopefully, as we retire, when we have more time, we shall tell these stories after we get our NSSF sorted. Now, let's go to something else, Samia. There's this whole idea of you're good at something. You're starting to brand yourself. You're getting out there. One very critical thing that usually people miss out is the idea of networking and collaboration. In your area, how has this worked for you? Especially, supporting with the Tiber schools, supporting with, your passion in or within the school and the ecosystem, networks and collaboration.
Yeah, so I probably, in my view, the most important thing in making a career, building a business is your network, especially today because I think, I can learn so many things online. I can learn almost everything online, right? Like if you want to learn how to manufacture this, there's probably a guide, like I don't know how many books, and so you can figure that out. But if you want to actually get something moving, get something going, you need a network. And for me, in the work I've done, the schools, that's the most important thing. So we look for partnerships. If you meet a parent, or you meet a former student, you meet alumni, we're engaging, we're trying to discuss. And just to say, it's never, because sometimes I found, at least when I was younger, when someone told me network, I thought, oh my God, no, I don't want to speak with people about work, and so I think it's important to like we met earlier today, and we're building a network right now. But at no point has anyone said, buy this from me or do that from me. Like it's like networking is building friendships, and building friendships and building trust. Because eventually, when you get to a point that you want to work with someone, you need that underlying trust, and so I think that's where I feel, or that's the direction I tend to take. That's how I think about it. And it's same thing goes with online. You spoke about branding. If if you're trying to build a network and you're trying to go into education services or banking, and most of what you're posting online is maybe your after hours life, it's not going to work out. So I think it's just important to be conscious of, like, we're building connections. Right now all we're focused on is getting to know each other, building connections, trying to develop that underlying trust, and then move. And this is also part because I wanted to kind of mention that aspect, because he spoke about focus. If we come to network with someone, or if we are meeting someone and you're having a conversation, you can't now start thinking about, I can do this person, I can do this for them, and they can pay me this much. Or you really have to be focused on the conversation and getting to know the person.
Oh, thank you. Wow, Paul, he said something, and it just reminded me, your network is your net worth. If you have this passion and you're trying to make money out of it, but your network is small, it's a trick, huh? Your views, Paul?
I think Arnold Schwarzenegger recently wrote a book this year, that Be Useful. That's the title of the book. When we talk about networks, I think there is, maybe not generally believed, but if you analyze the detail, many people think network means me associating with a superior only. But I think you have to generate value within you to be of value to the other, because networks work in a symbiotic relationship, not a parasitic relationship. There is no doubt that it doesn't matter which studies you look at, the social construct is a key aspect of longevity, but also success. So that's where, networks is just a subset of the whole population. And I think if you're asking whether the network is relevant, it is. But which network are we talking about? Now, that's what, where you go back and say, what is it that I want to achieve? When I was younger in employment, I had an MT, one of the best that I've ever seen. He actually told me something very interesting, that he doesn't like golf, but he goes to play golf every Friday. Then he said something that I'll never forget, that, however, the team I was on last week, I never join it again. So he moves to the next, pursuit. When he's with them, he maximizes and ensures the lasting impressions, and then he goes on building like that. And I think that's part of the journey, that you don't want to assume that you get the entire network in one go. Transition is a journey. You go on building networks. Maybe our networks that we build when we are younger evolve and change. And we have old boys, and we have certain things that combine us. Then you add on other networks that you go. So there is, I think, there's no doubt that your network is really your net worth. But that is assuming that the entire network is value based.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Yes.
Oh, wow, that's quite interesting. It actually brings a lot of thinking to mind. I have this principle. I personally use it. It's called the 60-40 principle. In that principle, what I normally do is, when I get into a network, I want to give, or I try to give 60. So I go in to give more, because then I'm more valuable to that network, and they will have to come back to me for more. So it's maintained. And I like that principle. I wish I could use it to money as well, but, because unfortunately sometimes the more money you put out, the less you get back. But anyway, it's a very interesting principle. But I like the way you also put it together. And for me, in this whole passion conversation, people have to know you. You have to put yourself out there, but you can only put yourself out there if you also go out to be out there. You can't just sit in your small house and tweet away or whatever, or YouTube away and say, this is who I am. You have to go out there. That's very interesting. So many people do not know whether they have passions. Some people know whether they have passions. Some people want to start big. Some people want to start small. And Paul, I don't know if you're free to share this, but you shared with me a very interesting story, a personal story, a family story, of how you have made your daughter get to that point of, success in that sports arena, which for many parents is a heavy toll. Maybe if you could just tell us about that.
Yes, when my daughter made 14 and I realized she's at a level where we can share this,
Yeah.
I sought her permission that we will share this story because it will help a lot of lives. So, Tony knows me more because of the sports pursuit that I do for my children. But I was explaining to him before that I joined sports to sort out a health crisis. My daughter was diagnosed at 11 years, which is 4 years ago, as beyond the critical best stage. Now, one of those evenings I was passing through, her reading area, and I found that she had written that she hates her life because everybody says she's too fat. When a pen falls down, she can't even pick it up because of breathing problem. Now, as a parent, you know what that means. Yeah, you're actually treading on a very thin line of tears and something. Now, that's why, why I love reading. I remembered Steve Jobs saying in one of those graduation speeches that you pray that in life all the dots will add up, okay? Now, I grew up with a bit of that, when people were young, you tell you are from Chanamukaka, the most rural area ever known. So now I said, I'm going to work with my daughter because I couldn't mention weight. I couldn't mention anything that is adverse. I came in as a parent and said, I'm going to work with her to turn her into an Olympian. And I remember telling her with no uncertainty that, Abby, in 5 years, we have to go to the Olympics. So we started a journey in sport in 2019. We started with swimming and basketball. Now, we went for a swimming competition, and guess what happens? The pools are 25 meters. So when you're doing a 50-meter race, you come and then go back. Now, she went with a team of swimmers. They went, touched the other side, and went back. She was still halfway, coming. She actually almost got stuck. Now, you know what it means.
Right.
The beauty is that she didn't pick that it was not a very good, pleasant place. But we have that video which we laugh about.
Right.
So we moved the journey and started working. We could run 2 to 5 kilometers every day. We started with 2. 2 kilometers could take us about 30 minutes because we have to rest after 50 meters to allow for breathing. But then, I think it's Sir Headmaster Sir who highlighted the aspect of consistency. I think there is no silver bullet in any pursuit than consistency. Because what we did is that every day at 6 a.m., we were on the road. She didn't like it. And of course, the young ones also had to come in so that it doesn't appear segregative. Now, you need to have a few milestones to realize, So after about 3-4 months, we could see that, we now make our 2 kilometers in a shorter time. So that was a milestone. But to cut the long story short, we took on 3 sports: basketball, lawn tennis, and swimming. Right now, as I speak, she's the captain of the under-16 lawn tennis national team.
Wow.
In fact, she's the only girl this year that was selected by the International Tennis Federation to be sponsored for further development in the sport.
Wow.
And if you're talking about monetizing talent and passions, they pay for her to travel. They get her the best coaches, and she also earns some per diem. In fact, I was giving her a joke the other day that you are 15, but your 2 weeks per diem is bigger than my 2 months salary that I earned after 23 years of hard work and being among the very best in class, moreover.
True.
Yeah,
true.
But why am I saying all this is that, she loves basketball, by the way. That's her biggest passion. But we did tennis because it's also commercially a very good sport. I'm saying all this because you can, if a child...
Maybe
yes.
Paul, if you could talk about tennis and why it is commercially viable.
Yes. For every goal that we set, one of the things we do is to tap again in what Dr. Stephen Covey called the habits of highly effective people. So the second habit says you begin with the end in mind. We do not really join pursuits for the sake of participating. I have this thing of driving excellence and, with passion, not passion, but with joy and happiness. So when I started the sports, whatever, I never knew much about tennis. I never knew about basketball apart from knowing that about the Jordans and all that. Me, it's football mainly. But then I started looking out, the better awareness, started looking out for information. And I remember one of the travels, I met a guy who is a sports, scientist, something like that. And I was telling him about how my children are pursuing sports, now with passion, you start talking about that. And he briefed me about why your children have to get into tennis. And he even got the charts and say, you see, look at the earnings, and I had never had an idea. So whether they liked it or not, I had an end in mind. So today when I see them on top of their of their game, but the key messages here is again to go back to what I said, that our bodies are really theaters of greatness. You can imagine this is a child who was
Sorry, just say that again.
Yeah.
For Sir Headmaster Sir. Our bodies are what?
They are theaters of greatness.
Wow.
Yeah. The issue is, are we going to bring out that greatness? Because this is a child that was obese. Today, it's difficult to talk about lawn tennis in this country without her name being mentioned. Yeah.
Wow.
And if she can do it in 4 years, then just imagine a person who is fit and to go without having to first address an issue that is standing as a barrier. So yes, I joined tennis because I can tell you, I was telling her she's earning more 2 weeks per day, before she even gets into the professional tennis. Yeah. So again, with the end in mind, and guess how do we get there? And I think that's the story that most times we leave it out, and we kind of mislead the listeners. But this is, Tony knows, of course, he talked about 5 a.m. club. As we went, in our second year, we now said we need to create time, because we have 24 hours. We need to create time for more trainings, at least 3 hours minimum a day. Now, when they're in school, every day, Monday to Friday, they're up at 4:30. Yeah, including the young one who has just made 9 this year. They're up at 4:30 a.m. Now, in the first 3 months, I used to struggle to wake them up. But the issue of consistency steps in. Now they started waking me up. Because at 5 a.m., it doesn't matter what, we're supposed to be either in the pool or on a tennis court. And then in the evening, they also do an additional 2 hours. But I was telling them that there is a reason why I take you myself in the morning. I can get a drive, of course, to take you, but then they miss out that active participation and engagement of a parent. And that presence alone has helped elevate them to self-belief, self-confidence. And of course, I do a bit of mental alignment for them to tell them, like I was explaining to them, the issue of consistency, why the small efforts done every day are most important. So one day we left a basin. We have a tap in the compound. So we left a basin below the tap and left water dripping. Dripping, poo, poo, like 1 drop per 30 seconds. And we went away at 6 and said, let's see what happens in the evening. Found the compound flooding. Yeah. Now you can imagine that small drop, which looks like insignificant.
Consistency.
It filled the basin, not only filled it, but also caused the flood in the compound. Now, and so my advice to them is that whenever you go to put in your 1 hour, make it count.
I love that.
And really, it's a long journey, but and a long story. But I wanted to summarize it within the time realms.
No, that's really perfect, because it actually sums up what we're trying to talk about. You have a passion, you want to monetize it, you have to start small. And as long as you're consistent, that's all that matters. A lot of the time we are motivated on day 1, and then day 2, we don't show up. Then day 3, we show up. Then day 4, consistency, the small bit. And James Clear in that book, Atomic Habits, explains that even further. You just have to keep compounding. The NSSF where Sir Headmaster Sir, he told us about NSSF. NSSF compounds our money for us, and at the end of the day, he gave me very interesting statistics. He said we contribute 15% to NSSF, and then our employer contributes 30%, and then the rest of the contribution is compounding interest. When I thought about it that way, I said I should actually whistleblow on my employers who never sent in my money. But I think that's a very, very interesting one. Samia, I'll come to you with the Taiba passion, because Taiba started as a school that had 8 students and 9 teachers. Very small, insignificant school in the Kampala suburb. Today, several campuses. And if you talk about Ugandans who've gone through that school, so many great stories can be told about that. Just speak about that idea of starting small and becoming big.
Yeah, like I said, it was the consistency. I think that some of the stories I've had is you go in every day to do a job, and you're committed maybe to at the time the commitment was to showing that anyone is capable of learning and passing exams, because the first cohorts of students were not people that were considered intelligent academically. So the point was to prove anyone can learn and anyone can pass this curriculum. And when you have something, when you have a goal like that and you're passionate about teaching young people, I think it becomes easy to go in, day out, and develop those habits. And it goes back to the same things Paul was saying about that consistency. So it was day in, day out. And the beautiful thing about it as well was there were so many challenges because you're dealing with people's lives. You're dealing with people's children's lives. So, but when you have that passion and you're consistent, you're day in, day out, everything compounds, like the interest that you were discussing earlier on. So I think that just in summary, that's kind of what it was. You started small, and because you're passionate and you're day in, day out, people are seeing that service, and it grows and grows and grows. I think that's why we are where we are today. And hopefully, and we plan to continue along the same path, same habits, consistency, day in, day out, and we also hope to teach that to our young people.
Now, that brings me to a very interesting bit, and Headmaster Sai is standing in, when he comes in the class, that's when everyone goes silent. Even the noisemakers start, smiling. But just before he comes in, I have noticed that I have a passion somewhere. I'm starting to make money. One of the biggest challenges that we have seen with a lot of people and their passion projects is they don't know how to handle money. At what point does financial literacy come in? And I'm glad that we're actually having this conversation here. Financial literacy. How do you handle your money? How is your daughter managing her passion money?
Better awareness, better choices, better results. To be honest, financial literacy should start the Indian way. The moment, the memory of a child, I think, starts at 3 years or 3.5. So the moment the child starts understanding, we need to start subjecting them to that training. The challenge why we don't do that is that we also didn't have the training. So we've just, sorry, I almost said gambled our way to it, but I think we've learned our way to to it. So financial literacy is, I think, something we have to be deliberate about teaching our children. In my own experience, every year we start with goals. Like the first week of January, we first celebrate our successes, and I can tell you they overwhelm you. Those children, they do things. But one of the things is because I'm deliberate about teaching them finances, because as you see where the direction they're moving, they're going to be dealing with sizable amounts of money. And, sometimes even you dive into the aspect of celebrity status. How do you control that? So we started slowly and said, okay, when I take your money to your account, maybe you don't really understand whether it is there or not. I can bring the statements. So we did a simple starting point. Start small. It's called envelope accounting. So you say, what is the model that whenever you earn your finances, and the headmaster Sir here has taught people before that there is a Jewish model that whenever every money you go, you get, there are just 5 ways of spending it. Actually, not spending it, of using it. So use the first 10% to God, which is the tithe. Okay? So when I give you 10,000, what is 10%? There's an envelope for tithe. Yes. So now get the next 10% is savings. Yeah? And they put in there. So I give them normally change the money to ease the principal. And then this one will be for investment, 20%, which is 40%. Now, if you are older people, you would be spending 50%, but you are young people and I spend on you. So this one, I think we can put it in the savings, but it's still in the envelope for expenditure. And then the other one, there is a 5% donation for charity, because part of the reasons I take them to train with the less privileged is to appreciate that life is actually not a linear scale. So and then contingents. Now, these envelopes. Of course, I realize the money gets spoiled if you keep it for a long time in their paper money. So we normally translate it into coins at the end of the year. Then we now move to translate it into action. So the 10% for God, everyone goes in Thanksgiving and delivers that to, then the other one, investment and, but they see that the money has accumulated.
Yes.
So now this year I let it pass I didn't follow them up. But now I will see how they have used their earnings for the year, because we also do weekly quizzes and they
Right.
earn some things.
Right.
So
right.
I'm waiting to see what they're doing.
Fantastic.
So if there are any aspects that need follow through, then we go into that. But I think to answer your question is that the earlier we get people introduced to this, because the better. Because I think many of us are still struggling with the adrenaline that is generated whenever money is issued, and the headmaster will tell you that when benefits are paid, there is a big problem.
Samia?
I could just add to it. I think generally do not underestimate the level of intelligence of your children and intelligence, awareness, and maturity. You'll be surprised at how quickly they are willing to learn some of these core principles of financial literacy. And then just anyone starting out starting out and learning to handle money. I think for me, the two key things are budget. Sometimes you can get carried away. You see something doing really well. If you don't have a constraint to say, no, we're not spending more money on this, that's a pitfall that I think people fall into. So number one, have a budget. You don't need to be like an expert on this. Just write something down. When you hit that number, kind of move on. And I think, that. And then the second one is maybe if you move ahead a bit more, maybe this is a bit very practical, but I think you need to get into the habit of cost-benefit analysis on as many business activities as you can. So when you're starting out your business, it may not make sense for you to have a balance sheet and income statement because you just don't have the capacity to do those things. So I think number one is budget. Number two is cash flow statements. If you don't have money, I don't know what you're doing. So, make sure that you're actually having positive cash flows. So I think those, just in terms of starting out handling money, I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah,
and of course, be consistent with that.
Thank you very much, Samia. Thank you very much, Samia. Thank you very much, Paul. I just want to, just before I hand over to Sir Headmaster, Sir, this whole conversation around midterm money. I have some couple of friends who got their money and they did not go through financial literacy classes. And a couple of months after that money was given, I had a drink or two on some of that money. That money is nowhere to be seen. I'm still waiting for results. So over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Semir. This is just the mid of it. We are continuing this. Don't think you are off the hook. But I just wanted to give you a breather. One, I was seated there and I was wondering. There is a way they keep thinking that us the men we cannot have those conversations. I was amazed at the way you the men today are deciphering this in a software perspective. You're talking about the soft skills. No one here is talking about take the child, do this, but you are talking about the alignment, the skills. And I just thought, this is Paul from Chandamkak. Where did he get permission to start talking about those things? And it just amazed me, the story of Abby. And I mean, Paul, you're in the wrong profession. I don't know what you're doing at Mercantile. I don't want to say anything, but you probably need to be in a different place. But thank you so much. Consistency has come out so much, and I just wanted to just bring out some of the things that are they're being said about here. Consistency. Robert talked to us about consistency. The 60-40 principle. Thank you so much, Tony. Someone here is saying thank you so much, Tony. I can see there are people here asking about can someone have two passions? I'll leave that to you. Focus on building a relationship. Someone is noting out that and they're saying most times actually we are focused on the network. We go into the network to sell. You are there, you are pretending that we are networking, but you're actually there selling to them, telling them, buy this. If you don't buy this, your children will suffer. You are there to scare them, but he has put it in a very, very good perspective about when you're in a network, what do you actually, what are you bringing to this network? Can you concentrate on getting the relationship? 2-3 minutes into seeing you, I'm selling you some land. I'm saying, Taiba this land is good for Taiba. Like, I even don't know about Taiba that much, but because I know they have money, I am that has really come out so much. And network is value based. Tony, thank you for bringing that out, because sometimes we are confused into gangs. and you're saying we are networking. So every evening we are in a gang eating pork that it's networking. Like, when you decide and you say, you know what, now I'm starting a business, and you're a gang of 10, you can't raise $1 million from them. They say, yeah, they actually look at you as someone who's just becoming so proud about things. But so we need to understand being gangs and being in a network. In a network, if you're in a network where you are the boss, you are probably in the wrong network. You need to be in a network where you can learn, but also give. There's so much that has come out. And thank you so much. But I need to make this note before we continue. This particular session is being sponsored by Mercantile Bank. I realize if I don't say this, because Paul of Chanamkaka has given us the soft skills. He might live here without us him talking about Mercantile Bank. Mercantile Bank is the partner for this, and it has fully sponsored this. It costs us air, it costs us servers money to be on air, but today the server is not picking any coin. Mercantile is picking up this bill so that you can have this come to you in a timeless fashion. Thank you so much, Mercantile Bank. I will ask Paul at a certain point, please talk about Mercantile. Talk about all those other things. And of course, we never forget our friends from the incubator. We give you money, but we never give you skills. The incubator is here. Tony is from the incubator. And Paul said it very subtle, but in a good way, that yes, they are not going to pay. Yes, we are not going to pay him as NSSF, but the incubator is kind enough to pay Tony. So kindly, when you have a chance, talk about these things. And please, Taiba, don't feel shy. I know when you looked at my statistics, you're probably targeting the 2% and the 2%, but please, they are still there. Talk about this. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I would want to leave you to this. I just want to answer to two questions. One, questions are coming in here and they're saying, NSSF, all we want to hear is loans. And I'm telling you, I'm not being a bad person, but the law is not going to change today to give you loans. But one thing I know can change today is yourself and your perspective. What can you do with what you have? Because NSSF is not going to give you a loan today. That's not its mandate. There is a bank. There are banks out there to do loans. The money we have at NSSF is for your savings, and we will continue at that mandate. But I know a law may change and it turns into loans, but not today. But what can change today is yourself. Midterm. Yes, I've also seen questions here being asked that I made 10 years of savings. The law is clear. It has to be 10 years of contributions, not 10 years of being an NSSF member. So if you don't make 120 contributions, you may not be able to access midterm, even if you are 50. However, in the pipeline, there is an amendment coming up to make sure that you can, even if you have contributed 2 times and you are 45, you can get 20% of it. Until then, for now, we shall continue implementing with what we have in the law. Then there are those people who did not get financial literacy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, financial literacy or financial intelligence is a combination of knowledge, attitudes, and behavior. Now, financial literacy or financial intelligence has very little to do with money. It's about your behavior. It's about your attitude. It's about your knowledge. Seek knowledge. I just liked it when Paul kept saying he reads everything. So you are getting your money, and you have taken so much time to accumulate this money, but you're not taking off a day to read about where you can deploy it. Please seek knowledge. As NSSF, we have the knowledge centers. We know who has the knowledge. We have our partners, the Mercantile. They will avail you financial advisors. Your attitude. It's your attitude. It's not NSSF's attitude. It is your attitude. Money has a way of amplifying our behaviors. People were thinking you were a quiet man until you got that amount of money. It is your behaviors. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not the money. It is you. So pay attention to those 3 things while you're accessing your money. I want to remind you that NSSF money is your money and you need to access it at one point. But access it only when you are ready to take it. Finally, as I hand back to Tony here, and I notice that when I am out of class, he keeps calling me Apollo. And then I come, he say, Sir Headmaster, sir. I notice I have written your name and it is, please, you are on your last warning. But one of the persons here said, talk about the Christmas habits. spending, because sometimes we are also passionate about spending on this Christmas. Talk about the Christmas habits, how we go through this season from your perspective. So I'll leave it to Tony to see how we can craft this question to get this information. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sir Headmaster Sir. I will now continue the panel. We have our last, this is the last stretch. We have 30 minutes to go, so let's try and squeeze in as much as we can. I think we'll just begin with that note that Sir Headmaster Sir has left us with, the one on spending. Paul, you work for a financial institution. And now let's talk about, I have my passion, I have made money out of it, and now I am confused in terms of what to do. As a youthful guy, a guy in his 20s, what advice would you give them?
I like what Samuel said. I mean, you know, he talked about budgets and all that, but the financial literacy, earlier I talked about us being deliberate about things that matter for us in life. And if people are asking where the financial literacy is, let's start with YouTube. You know, you go in there and put in anything, you know, how do I manage my finances? What is the best way of becoming wealthy? You know, it's in a sustainable manner. You find people talking about themselves. Yeah, but now we are talking in the reality because it's December, and I think the headmaster, Sir highlighted, it was kind of humor, but he was saying big points in there. Yeah, that we if we didn't plan and we lack, the discipline of planning, then we are going to find a way of trying to spend what we have and begin January by calling friends, help me with an advance, or even taking advances at office and that kind of. But, an advance is really eating into the future. So you had better, if you're taking an advance, it had better be for development purposes. If it's for expenditure, you've just eaten the future income. Yeah, so it's a difficult, because it's a behavioral thing, which is also backed by peer influence. There's one thing that is very terrifying in this world. That is the act of dropping who you are to become who you ought to be, or who you are meant to be. That is a very terrifying thing. Yeah. And so when we talk about why people struggle to align themselves to the life they want to be, because when they think about where you are, and I think the headmaster was highlighting earlier in the discussion that you've been a CEO, you probably have had all these benefits, including housing. You don't know anything outside Kololo. Now, that is who you are. Now, to become who you ought to be. And I remember my friend, Mr. Francis Kamlege, in his farewell speech this year.
He's my friend too, by the way.
He made a comment, and I don't know whether people are listening to what he's saying. He made a comment that, no, I will be okay. I'm sure he had friends who were telling him, why are you retiring before your retirement? And he said, I will be okay. And I'm like, this is the bravery that people need to drop who you are. I mean, with all the clout that was around him, humble as he is, by the way, you drop who you are to go and pursue who you are meant to be. It's a difficult one, and that's why when we start quoting examples, there are not many. So for people who need advice, I mean, we can give a few shots to things. Maybe visit us at Mercantile, and we try to help lock away your money from you to save you from that burden. Because you see, whatever you have left is enough. That is a golden rule of financing. So if you have $1 million for this season as your salary, the best way to have some money in January is to keep it away from access. And that is now where you have to be innovative, and come to maybe a financial institution, lock it away to access it later. Whatever you have left will be enough. And interestingly, I just want to say this, maybe as my last contribution to this topic, is that people have to learn that there are some revealing facts about life. And one of them is that people don't care as much as you think they do. So when you're spending, I think you're trying to make an impression of yourself to others. But if I asked you the people from whom you ate the midterm access, you may not remember the names, but you enjoy it. You enjoy it. Yeah. So we just need to know that let's focus on building the foundations about ourselves, and then we can generate ourselves into a sphere of happiness and joy.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, and especially when you talk about the whole passion projects and entrepreneurship. I work within that space. I've seen a lot of young people start up businesses and they're starting to thrive, and then the next thing you know, they're doing so many things for clout. And then what was initially the main focus or the main focus area, which is the business, starts crumbling, and that for me is something that really worries me. But Samir, you have seen your parents, manage money. You have seen your parents' business grow. Would you attribute that to a very robust? I mean, you're in the financial area. That is what you're doing for the institution. Would you say their idea of saving and understanding that there's need to expand and invest has helped them get there?
Definitely, I think there was an intention behind every move that they made, and it wasn't always directly financial. And I think that's something important we've touched on here as well. And Paul keeps referring to learning and reading and how important that is. He also mentioned the word behavioral as well. So I think watching them and the business grow, the things that stood out the most wasn't just about how often they reviewed financial statements, or how often they were reading customer feedback or doing reports. It was habits. It was behavior. It was simple things like the discipline to say, I have money this Eid for this many people, right? And that's what I've planned for. Anything beyond that, is a no-go. And just kind of also recognizing, I know we've touched on soft skills, we've touched on aspects that aren't directly related to money, and some that are more in the emotional realm, but these are very important, because if you are certain of so if you're coming into the holiday season now, you need to be certain of who exactly you care about and limit your expenditure there. You don't need to impress the world. And I think that I saw that often in them, where they said, no, this is what we have, this is what we are going to move forward with. And of course, like one thing I say, it doesn't have to be, it's not this or the other. Like, you can focus on the financial aspects, the typical business, your operations and so on and so forth. But along those lines, you need to be able to develop in these other ways, because it's a growing field, behavioral finance and behavioral economics, and lots of the things that explain shoppers' habits also are things that we're learning. So it's their behaviors that taught me the most. You go into a supermarket, you've gone to buy this, but you notice this is on sale, so suddenly you're like, I have to buy it, right? But so there was a discipline about their approach. There still is, and I think that we keep coming back to these things, but they are very important, because, like we said, you can read and learn most of the stuff, but and it takes time as well to develop that discipline, and it's practiced. Everything is practiced. So yes.
You mentioned something of going to the supermarket, and this is the season, where they put all these nice drinks near the counter, and you end up calling and borrowing money which you never had because you've seen a deal. I think that's quite crazy, but it's quite interesting, and it's the season, so we really have to be meticulous around this time. It's easy to get carried away, and sometimes we think or we forget that there is what they call the 5 weeks of January. January is supposedly the longest month in the lifetime of humanity. But let's now just go back to, you're the passionate guy, you're making money and everything, but you want to iterate, you want to try and do something different. Someone actually asked the question of how many passions can you have, which I think for me is a very interesting one, and I think we could answer that. Paul, maybe if you could answer that.
Yes, by profession I'm an accountant, and but I want to give an example, because I was a partner in an accounting firm called Eads and Associates. Of course, because I'm doing the current role, I'm no longer a partner there. But I wanted to just give an example of my other partner. The managing partner, we are three of us, and almost within the same age bracket, and all of us from PricewaterhouseCoopers. The managing partner used, whenever we had strategy sessions, he used to tell us, guys, we are doing all this, dispensing our young energy, But this can't be the dream that we have. Each of us should be bringing out their passion. But the reason I bring up this is that my colleague Eric Setuba, who I'm sure he wouldn't be offended by mentioning his name. Yeah, he without blinking, he used to tell us that, for me, I really want to set up a school. And I used to look at Eric and I'm like, Eric, we're accountants. How does this connect? But it's amazing to see. He kept repeating that. 6 years ago, I think 5 or 6 years ago, he set up the school. Started with 3 children. One of them was his child. Before COVID, they had reached 134 children. It's called Olea Academy in Buwate. I was just checking their numbers this year because I was sending a child there. And they were at 320.
Wow.
Now, he's not left his accounting. He does big projects, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to say, if you follow the model that the neuroscience and positive psychology have explained, that happiness precedes success,
I like
then
that. If there's
you will
anything
be
I'm taking away,
amazed. You'll be amazed that you actually develop multiple
yeah,
passions because
yeah,
you're always happy. Yeah.
yeah.
So
yeah.
I think, but I will also just give one more example, just to just sink that point. I stayed in Nairobi, rather, in Kenya for 7 years. Out of them, 2 years were in Mombasa, and I had a security guard who, to me, was a very young Maasai guy, and asked him, "How old are you?" And the guy told me, "I'm 19." But I was so curious. I later discovered he was 14 years, but of course he had run away from his family because for them, being wealthy, you have to have cows and look after cows. But he wanted to pursue education. So I took him on as my son, maneuvered the security aspect and told him to go back to school. So during the day, he could go to log into school. During the night, he comes and sleeps a bit, so I had to contact the local police to do some rounds as he takes a rest. Yeah. But today, this child, or the young boy from Samburu, Masai land, is a data analyst and software developer for artificial intelligence.
Oh.
Yeah. And his passion, I remember asking him, what do you want to be in life? And he told me, I want to be a pilot. And I was asking myself, God and pilot? Yeah.
There's no connection.
I didn't see the connection. That's why I said, maybe we start going back to school. Are you willing to? And I can tell you, that boy right now flies planes.
Wow.
In fact, what we are looking at is upgrading his license
Wow.
to a commercial
Wow.
plane. So I met him, 3 weeks ago. I was in Kenya. We always have our lunch and dinner, chat out as father and son.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he told me, but in a few years I'll buy my own 4-seater and 5-seater. So he's so passionate about flying that even when you ask him how long he stays in Mulumuru, I asked him how long is it going to take you. He said, by the way, if it was a plane, it would be 5 minutes. As in, everything about him is about planes, and he's flown planes. Yeah. So, but how did he get into the plane world? He volunteered to look after horses when he discovered a family that had 2 planes. They had horses. He said, I want to volunteer to look after the horses. And he entered into the family. The old man started teaching him how to fly a plane. He gave him to try in the air. Today, we are working on, level of licensing.
Wow.
So he does his data analysis and software development because he told me, he showed me that they design software that is going to be used by robots to operate human beings. And that's the kind of work it does. So can you have more than one passion?
You can.
If you start
definitely.
with happiness, you are there.
I think, Sir Headmaster Sir, allow me to say that if there's anything I'm taking away from today, it is I have to be happy. I am going to be the happiest guy starting from today because if I'm happy, I'll be successful. Final. Okay, now let's just go into the idea that, or the topic that many people always scatter or scatter around. The idea of obstacles and challenges. It's one thing to be passionate, but there are obstacles along the way and challenges that make it tricky. From your experiences and your life experiences, could you just give me some simple situations or ideas of how you've managed to deal with this? I like building on a theory that talks about how we as human beings love the comfort zone. So you have a passion, but you have this job, this corporate job that is taking you down. But you definitely want to pursue your passion, but you're scared. You're scared of the unknown. So you're stuck in your comfort zone. And I usually say it is important for you to bulge out of that comfort zone into the chaos zone, because it's where growth happens. You know, growth has never happened in a comfortable place. Growth, in fact, they say people who have gone through the craziest situations in life are the people with the greatest mindsets because they've grown. And growth can only happen in, that adversity. How do you pursue that? How do you engage your passion amidst all of that? Samir, you want to start?
I think, irrespective of whether you are happy or whether you are pursuing your passion, obstacles are going to come along the way. That's just, I think, generally life is not going to be smooth. So I think that by choosing to pursue happiness and by choosing to pursue your passions, it gets, you find the drive and the will to push through challenges. So mine is not too. The example I can think of is when I was starting out with export, and I had to deal with some border services agents and carrying goods. And at the time, I was still doing my undergrad. So I believe I had exams the next morning. But then, you have cargo worth this much. If it's not released today and it's fresh foods, it's all going down. And, who's going to explain that money was lost? But at the same time, it's also who's going to explain that I failed this exam. So so for me it was, I remember just thinking, okay, I think I have to go into the border services office and have to sit there all day and just, pressure for the release of the cargo. And I also have to make sure that as soon as it's done, I can kind of get on things right away. And, because I was lucky that I was studying something I was passionate about, and I was also passionate about the business. So I kind of, the solutions just came. You find the right mindset. And for me, it was like, okay, there's no reason why if I'm going to be sitting at the border services office until 4 a.m. in the morning, there's no reason why I can't. Something I didn't have passion for, which I have at different points. Even when I had nothing to do, I still couldn't find it in myself to study. But when I was pursuing something I had a lot of passion for, I was able to overcome at least. That's a simple example, I think, that I can recall.
Paul?
Yes. Let me start by saying that pain, disappointment, and bottlenecks are the best purifiers in this world. If you want to get to the other mode of the theater of greatness, they're the best. In our years, I think we grew up when life was more like at the bottom. The only option we had was to climb up. So we were, failure was not an option. But from a general perspective, we have to appreciate that it rains on the rich just as it rains on the poor. The circumstances are not going to change because you've demonstrated passions. The only thing why passion is very important is that if you're passionate about things, again, applying the mode of happiness, you will not be overwhelmed by every little setback.
Yeah.
It will actually open you up to be inspired to look at possibilities. Yeah. Whenever you meet a bottleneck. So, somebody is seeing a stumbling block, for you are seeing a stepping stone to move faster. That paradigm. And of course, like they say, you cannot discover new lands unless you're willing to lose sight of the current shore. You have to sail the sea to find new land.
The unknown.
To the unknown.
Yeah.
So I think everybody has to appreciate that. If we go by the fundamentals, set goals that are stretching. Don't look at your current circumstances to set goals. Set goals on what you actually want. If you're earning 1 million a month today, it doesn't prevent you from setting yourself to have a $1 million net worth in 10 years. And then you start the journey. Yeah, and so we have to have the guts to accommodate, some pain in our lives, okay, for a short while or a medium term, for the sake of a greater, happiness in the future.
Yes.
And I don't know how better to put it than to just say we have to have that guts. Thank you.
Wow, Sir Headmaster Sir, another new word to take away from here: the theater of greatness. And Sir Headmaster Sir, if you don't join or if you haven't joined us yet at the 5 a.m. club, I think it is high time for you to subscribe to make your body the theater of greatness. Now, we're moving away from overcoming challenges, and I like to now go into something we are talking about purpose. I always say purpose is like, it's that compass that guides you on a path of whether you're doing the right thing or whether you're not. Because, you see, if I know the road that is taking me somewhere, I know what roads to avoid. You know, if I know I'm going to Jinja, I can't be getting Chanamkaka Masaka routes. I know I have to use this route. But what's also interesting about campus, you know, it was interesting. And when you talk about flying, I got to learn that if a pilot is misaligned by just 1 degree off the campus, he will end up finding himself miles from his intended destination. And it's also, I always say, you know, it's kind of like a ship leaving Mombasa. Without a compass, you have no clue of where you're going. You want to go to Japan, but you end up in Pretoria or Bombay. What and how important is purpose in this conversation around passion? Because you see, you can like something and you enjoy it, you like to do it, but does it tie with your overall goal? You know, if someone said, oh, okay, let's say, oh, God forbid, it's the day that you've passed on, and someone says, we knew this guy for this one thing. How does purpose tie in with passion?
I think, for example, with the Taiba schools, we've had lots of discussions around what our purpose is, and so it's very important for us to proving that quality education is accessible and that anyone is capable of being a good student. So purpose is important because strategy changes, tactics change, but overall this is what if at any point in time, we might say, oh, maybe we need more digital classrooms. That can change. We could say nutrition science has improved, we need to change the diets. But if anything is telling us that we need to deviate from proving that quality education is accessible to all learners and that anyone is capable of learning, then we know we're kind of deviating. So I think it's easiest for me to define it in those terms because that guides you. That kind of says, so anytime someone comes, if we want to onboard a new partner, if we're working with a different supplier, you're working, with different people, anyone that is going to deviate you from that purpose, is, that's your red signal to say, no, this is not an interaction we want to have, but this is not a relationship we want to build. But on the other hand, if you see that if they're aligned with where you're going, then that's a signal to move ahead, to move forward. So I think that's like at least my take on purpose and why it's very important. It's obvious. It's like it's the campus thing, but in practice, that's really what it comes down to for us.
The true north.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Thank you. I think about 15 years ago, I was only 6 years into work, but I noticed that and I was working for my third company. Every entity that I had worked for had a mission, it had a vision. But guess what? The guy dispensing energy didn't have anything to show. So I committed to write down my mission statement.
Yes.
Yeah. And I said, it took me a bit of
personal
time.
mission statement.
Personal mission statement. I refined it over years, and I said, who is Paul Senyomo? So my mission statement is to live a life of abundance. And abundance here means that there is enough for everybody. Yeah?
Avoid the scarcity mindset.
It's to live a life of abundance, which is not restricted by money or status in society, but by my own conscience, so that my family and society look at me as an informed advisor, as a gentleman, and as a responsible citizen. Now, each of the words in there is a series of hard work. Okay? Now, when I mention all these things of parenting, I look at it as raising future leaders, husbands and wives for people. People who are going to transform. They are going to be parents to my grandchildren. So it's what can I say? Without a campus, you said it right. Yeah? If you're going to US, you end up in Bombay. Yeah? Because you don't have that global positioning system. But of course, after writing it down, you have to do the work.
Absolutely.
And that is where the challenge comes. You got to do the work.
They always say that's when the rubber hits the ground.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, we're coming to the end of our very amazing webinar. I've really enjoyed myself. And I'll probably just dive into the last question, which is really about if I was a young guy in my 20s and I am trying to find out what I need to do or where my passion lies to become happy, or to provide a meaningful life of service to others, what is that starting point that I have to begin? Where do I start my soul searching?
I can start. I think number one is maybe honesty with yourself and where you are at that particular point in time. Again, if you don't, Paul's mentioned awareness a number of times, and it kind of that's what you have to do first. So the work initially has to go into, okay, where, like, honestly, if I look at myself, where am I? Because when you come into your 20s, is the first time that you actually think about the future deliberately. Because prior to that, I remember when I was younger, I would say I want to be this, but the next day I want to be something else. So I never actually deliberately thought about where I was going or what I wanted to be. So when you reach your 20s and you have this background of having never thought about what you want or where you want to be, you really need to kind of sit down and figure out, okay, where am I right now in life? Where am I financially, mentally, emotionally, academically? And once, I think that's the important thing. If you skip that, then you're not doing anything, or you're not going to help yourself much.
Thank you very much, Samir. Paul?
Yes, I think the starting point is a self-evaluation. Like, Samir has said, you have to be honest about that. I indicated I'm an accountant, but if you really ask me how much accountants have done in my life, it may not be so much. I've done more of analysis, actually. Analysis is what moved me globally.
Right.
Now, I discovered I'm not so comfortable with routine, and I love exploring, and I love, sorting out complex problems. So I moved into analysis. In our years, I taught myself Microsoft Excel. And if I can tell you, I had a chance to
struggle with Microsoft Excel.
I used to tell people that you can even take your photograph if you know the right command. Yeah, so I just committed that every day I'll teach myself 2 functions, and then look for the work to apply it, because if you have the knowledge and you do not apply it, then of course it's irrelevant. So time came, actually, how I joined Lafarge is that they were looking for an analyst who would put together a case that would be approved. It was about $130 million investment, and it had been rejected for about 5 years. So when I came in with my Excel, I just blew the whole thing out, and we had the investment approved. So if you're 20-year-old, sit down and do a self-evaluation that when I think about this, does it tickle my adrenaline, or am I adverse? Like I said, I studied accounting. You would expect me to look for debits and credits, but instead I was looking for analysis. Anyone who brought up that, we need to know how the aging of stocks. Now I want the whole database, and I make sense out of it. It used to excite me. So I ended up doing many people's work just to apply my learnings in Excel. And I must say, today it is simplified, but by then I was really a king, and I'm not saying I'm anything less now. So I think for young people, that's really it. But of course, in a world where we have broken focus syndrome, where people don't concentrate for a long time, they have to know that you need to create your tight bubbles of concentration so that you jump out of noise and pursue your really the things that drive you, so that including thinking time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Samir. Thank you very much, Paul. I just wanted to end on a note, and thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. It's been a very interesting conversation. We've gone all ways, sideways, different ways, just to really bring this or drive this conversation home. I love, and I'll end with the Simon Sinek idea of the interesting golden circle. Many people or many companies know what they do. Yeah, you know what you do. You know what you do and how you do whatever. Some companies know how to do it. So you know what you do. Some know how to do it, but very few of us, including companies, know why we are doing it. So when you talk about a passion, why are you doing it? Are you doing it just for vibes and mashallah, or you're doing it for something really worthwhile? And the final thing as well that I've also learned here, or the 2 final things that I've really taken away from here, is focus, focus, focus. The magnifying glass will not leave my head. I'm now remembering it whenever I talk about focus. Focus, focus, focus. And finally, Happiness precedes success, and we have to be ready to make our bodies the theaters of greatness. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much, Samir. Sir Headmaster. Oh, yeah.
Yes, my parting remark here is...
Don't do your parting remarks yet. Don't do them. I'll let you part.
This is how headmasters are dictatorial. It
Yes.
always happens like this.
Now, I need to accuse Tony of picking up my lessons. So I have come with my smart, with my I have written them here. Focus is the new multitasker. He's talked about it. Our bodies are theater of greatness. I mean, why, Tony? Why? But I think it is the same thing we are getting. And for me, every time I sit there and I write on my notes here, I feel like you gentlemen have really done this. But before we get into the parting shots, people kept telling me, talk to the microphone, be consistent, headmasters. I want to share two things as we go away. One, send our appreciation to Family TV. Family TV is doing this live on TV. Thank you so much, Family TV. They have donated their airtime. We are not paying savers money to have this. So thank you so much, Family TV. Mercantile Bank is paying for this, that brings it to the air to airtime. Thank you so much, Mercantile Bank. Someone has asked about voluntary. Robina, yes, voluntary. We receive voluntary contributions. The law has opened up. You can bring in voluntary payments at age 20, which as long as you are 16 and above, you are working or not working, you can bring in your voluntary contributions. Discipline needs practice. So these ones, Tony didn't pick them out. At least he left me with some. Happiness precedes success. Pain, bottlenecks are purifiers. Passion opens up to your possibilities. Now, there is a way where people can take this and say, now I'm going to just be of passion. And I liked it when Paul simply added to this, that on top of your passion, you need to actually get the work done, because it's going to open opportunities. It's not that you are going to have a different life. No, it's the same. You are in the same theater, but you are bringing out your beat. You can't discover new lands unless you are willing to lose the sight of the shore. Now that one has really hit deep. It has hit deep. And it's the headmaster's class. I'm the only one supposed to be doing these things, not you. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go out, we usually do homework, assignments, and I will. By the way, I am so glad that one of the things that I have picked out from Sameh is there's a contrast. These ones are midterm and age beneficiaries. For you have not even started looking at coming near NSSF, but you are speaking with a lot of intellect, a lot of intelligence. I was worried that at a bit you seemed so laid back, but then when you speak with purpose, and I think you need to embrace that. It is, some people come with vibe, but you come with purpose, and I think when you start speaking, people listen. And it has nothing to do with age. They just listen. Thank you so much, Samir, and thank you so much for stepping into the shoes of Mariam, who gave you this assignment yesterday at 11. I know she asked you to step in at 11, but indeed it was a great choice. But we have homework here. What is that one book, one podcast, one reading, one routine? Tony has invited me to the 5 a.m. routine that you'd want our people, you'd want to live with our members. The nation is watching, and I will start from Tony and with.
I think for me the one, and I'll make this 1 and 2. But one is wake up every 5 a.m. and listen to the 5 a.m. club, courtesy of Ubuntu Leadership Safari. We do that every weekday. We are now on recess, but we do that every weekday. And in here, we reflect on life, reflect on purpose, and give ourselves a meaningful start to the day. And then 2, 5 a.m. club with Mr. Paul here, create that theater of greatness using your body, or making your body that theater of greatness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. But while you also you had something to add to something, yes. And I also want you to bring out a little bit about Mercantile. They have sponsored this. I mean, we don't want to be in trouble, both of us, if you don't say something about Mercantile.
Yeah, I think you need to strike the iron while it's hot. So I start with Mercantile. Mercantile is a fast-growing supervised financial institution in Uganda. We offer services to every nature of customer as long as you want to add value to your life. So we take personalized banking as our personal mission. And that in all spheres, whether at corporate level or individual level, what we want to see is sustainability, and our belief is that as we help you grow, we're also growing. But we are not really focused a lot on the transaction paradigm of things. We want the partnership, paradigm with you as an individual or as a company. So we are happy to have all existing, continuing, but also new customers. One thing that we do is that when you have one experience, the challenge is that you can never leave. Thank you. But coming back to the books, it gets challenging, especially for me, because I really read a minimum of 18 books a year. But one book, because I've talked a lot about happiness, I can recommend a book called Happiness Advantage. I think it's a relatively new book, but it will give you aspects of knowledge in terms of positive psychology, neuroscience, because everything you do is starts with the head. But the other book that really impacted my life when I was younger was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If anybody has not, associated with the training in that area or read it, I always recommend it. But because people also talked about financial management, the SI unit, the basic book for SI unit is The Richest Man in Babylon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paul. You had some remarks to share?
No, it was just really to tell people that everything worthwhile is an uphill task, and we have to appreciate that. I love the quote that used to hang in from the literature in John F. Kennedy's office. He said, "Oh God, thy sea is so great, but my boat is too small." And if you expound it, he was actually realizing the theater of greatness in him, but he didn't think he had tapped into the capacity to execute what ought to be. And I wanted to, to use that as a parting shot to say that we are all great people. I've given you an example of a child that was obese, turning into a national champion and headed to be a top, seasoned sports personality. Of course, I didn't talk about her academics, but if we went that lane, then again, you can see that excellence is the prevailing attitude. So thank you.
Paul from Chanamkaka. I mean, he keeps amazing me. Finally, I had you last because obvious reasons. I won't tell you which obvious reasons, but I had you last.
So with regards to books or readings, can I do 3?
Please.
So the first one maybe is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Very common. You can find it anywhere. It's a good read, simple read, regardless whether you are a keen reader or not. I think it's something you can pick up and learn from. The other two have been of a lot more influence to me. And the first one, it's a short one. It's a poem. It's called On Work. It's about working. It's by Khalil Gibran. So I think it's a short one. You can probably read it today. It's very good. Some of those that's something that I read daily for a period of time because it's just one page, but very good work. Then the one I'm reading right now, it's quite interesting, is called The Theory of Moral Sentiments by Adam Smith. Again, this is a very good one. It touches on money, but it touches more so as well on other people. Adam Smith, just so you know, is the capitalism freehand. So that would be the originator of those theories. But most of the book is speaking on other aspects. It's not talking about money directly. So those are the 3 readings. And just one more, maybe a quote from a TED Talk I listened to recently, just on the importance. I think the most important thing is to learn to listen. And in the podcast, in the TED Talk, it's one by Celeste Headley. And in the TED Talk, she has a Buddhist saying that goes, when your mouth is open, you're not learning, and no man ever talked his way out of a job. So I think listening is very key. Yeah, that's what I'd like to share.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much. I mean, allow me, and maybe you haven't allowed me, but listening from a 32-year-old, I mean, this is the first time I'm mentioning age, and it's a men's show, so we can mention age. But I have, in the last, I think 1 month, I have had chance to share platforms with youth. They call me for a youth, to address some youth. And the prevailing aspect was, we are youth, we are vulnerable, we are poor. I mean, the youth, you need to come out and see what the youth are saying. Because there's a difference between growing old and growing up. You can be youth and you have grown up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you so much, the listeners. I have learned myself. I've learned so much. I keep telling people, if you find me poor in my old age, please beat me up, because the knowledge I am next to, I cannot afford. I cannot afford to retire poor. I mean, this. But as we go for the Christmas holidays, please confuse your neighbors. Confuse your neighbors. They expect you to drive a Prado to the village, get a Primo. Confuse them. They expect you to buy the whole chicken in church. Don't. Just don't go into the auctioning. Just confuse them. And when they're asking what happened, you don't tell them. Just tell them, you keep watching this space, because it is these habits that we go, if we continue going with the vibe and the expectation of the community, that will land us into trouble. Confuse your neighbor. In 5 years, you'll come back and thank me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Family TV. Thank you so much, NSSF. Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you so much, Taiba. Thank you so much, McIntyre. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Sema. From us, we wish you a Merry Christmas. Goodbye.